What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, reviewing today the PlayStation 4 exclusive Days Gone. Now, if you've been subscribed to this channel for a bit, I'm sure you remember that all the way back in January, I was actually given a chance to try this game very early on, and to be honest, I wasn't very impressed by it. I could see that this was a project that was attempting to be giant and ambitious, but to be quite frank, I just didn't think that it was very fun, and it certainly wasn't unique. Now though, I've had a chance to play hours and hours of the game, and I want to go back and take a second look at it, and basically try and answer the question of, was I wrong about Days Gone? Now, first and foremost, this video is going to avoid all spoilers because, to be honest, this game is very, very cutscene heavy. This is so reliant on its plot that if I accidentally revealed any of the big story elements, it could actually ruin the game for you. So I'm going to do my very, very best to just talk very, very loosely about the characters and the story itself. So the big thing here is, of course, this is yet another zombie apocalypse. Some sort of virus has run rampant and killed most of the population, and those who are left are living in a terrible wasteland. The big difference here, though, is that these are not technically zombies in the typical sense. They're not undead, but they are actually still infected. So basically, these things that they like to call freakers are, well, they're some sort of strange virus-infected people who have basically reverted back to their most primal state. They eat, they kill, they sleep, and at the end of the day, they are still alive in some sense. Now, the reason that's important is because these things can still be killed by the typical means. With just a few good shots or one good explosion, you can take them out. Even hundreds of them at once are pretty easy to put down. The other big thing about this, though, is the fact that, as you can see here, it can infect more than just humans. It can actually infect all sorts of animals, including these giant zombie bears. But the thing is, these things are not actually that tough. This game overall is actually quite simple, which is kind of a disappointment. I've always been a big believer in the fact that desperation is the best thing to create fear. If you're trying to literally count every single bullet in your gun, or you're scrounging for the next band-aid and your hands are shaking in desperation, well, that's going to be a better style of fear than if every single enemy dies in a couple hits. And unfortunately, everything in this game is actually quite squishy. Now, about 50% of the game you're fighting these monsters, and 50% of the time you're fighting humans. But for some reason, even on normal difficulty, everything dies relatively quick. I'm not sure if there's just the fact that everybody's so malnourished, but it seems like everybody is just literal seconds from falling over dead. What's really supposed to get you invested in this world and these fights, though, is of course the story itself, which is actually all based on the title, Days Gone. This is actually talking about the number of days gone that his wife has been missing. So right as this outbreak was initially happening, our hero panicked and decided to put his wounded wife on a medical helicopter and send her off to what he thought was safe harbor. He was hoping that she would be taken to some sort of military base and just later on meet up with her, and unfortunately that was not the case. This game starts years after that event, and now we're sort of seeing the complete fallout of the entire universe. Nobody is left alive. Everybody is dead, except for just the tiniest little bristles, the tiniest little scrounges of society that have managed to cling together. Now, the big thing here is the fact that, obviously, our hero is a biker, and he's just going to spend a majority of the game cruising around, talking to different camps, and killing 99% of the humans he comes across. Because for some reason, as soon as all the cops disappeared, I guess everybody decided to become mass murderers. Even still, I want to really highlight something in this game that I think is perhaps the best aspect to it, which is, strangely enough, I really enjoy the upgrade system to this in a massive, massive degree. So essentially, at this point, the main drive of everybody is just raw survival. People don't care anymore about having fancy possessions, nobody wants a stupid iPod. At this point, the only thing that matters is your next meal, having a place to sleep, and hopefully having some fences around you to keep you safe while you slumber. But here's the thing, that requires making uneasy alliances, and so because of it, as you go through this game, you'll actually run into lots of different camps, each one that has its different leaders, different motivations, and different aspects to them. Some of them are like work camps where people are constantly just building and building and building to try and establish their own form of a city, or there's ones where it's weird lawless forest people who just want to have their giant secret fortress and live out in the woods and be left alone. The real thing here that's important though is the fact that these people really only value one thing, which is respect. They want you to properly honor their rules. And so what's interesting is basically there are tons and tons of quests you can do, from finding new survivors to trying to knock out different nests of these zombies or all sorts of stuff like that. And depending on who you do them for actually builds up your reputation with that particular camp. This is how you get unlockables. Basically, these people constantly have all the best weapons and armor of the land. They've been scrounging for years. They know where all the good stuff's at. And if they learn to trust you enough, eventually they'll give you access to it. This can make it where you can do stuff like buy crazy guns or super cool upgrades for your bike. That way you can get different paint jobs, different customization aspects of the chassis, or maybe just replace its engine so you can go up hills even faster. And I like all this because it makes it where it feels realistic in a way. I mean, if this was the apocalypse, I'm not going to care about my neighbor giving me $85 for a frickin' pack of gum. I want his help. I want him to help me establish my own life so we can see tomorrow. This really just brings me to what I think is perhaps the best part of the game overall, which is just the questing system. This game is so smart about constantly guiding you to different activities. It will actually auto-select what is probably the best quest for you. A nearby event, some sort of cool giant fight that's about to go down, or sometimes just the person who's the most desperate for your assistance. And I like this because if you wanted, you can beat this entire game without ever actually even clicking the map. I mean, if you wanted, you could just literally play this game and have it keep telling you where to go. And I like that because I feel like Deacon, our hero, he's not the type of guy to spend all of his days sitting here staring at a map and wondering what's over that next hill. He's a dude who just wants to survive and go around and just kind of explore. This is really one of those good open world games where it feels so open and such a living world that I don't care about what's going on. I just want to participate. I just want to jump into any event because they're all so special. This does bring me to what I think is a little bit of a downside though, which is the fact that I still think that some of the fights out here in the lands can be a little bit annoying. I mean, so one of the big things is that since you're a biker, you're just constantly cruising around and you actually have to worry about things like keeping your bike in good condition. You actually need to repair it if you crash it by scrounging different spare parts, or you actually need to get constant fuels. You need to, if you run out of gas, you need to find a can and refill the tank. But along with this, there's also all sorts of stupid, crazy crackheads who are just running around in the outback. Sometimes they'll put booby traps to knock you off your motorcycle, or they'll have snipers up on a hill to just blast you off. And it just basically makes it feels like really giant forced random encounters. It feels like the game trying to slow you down when you're driving to your next destination. As you get further into the game, you do unlock fast traveling so you can dart around pretty easily. But I'll be honest, for the first 10 hours of this game, I spent an egregious amount of time just getting stopped by these random jerks up in the hills that I would have to beat to death and then move on. It just felt like the developers were trying to pad out the length of the game because, to be quite honest, if you were just playing this game and skipping all the very long cutscenes, you could finish this very quick. Now, I want to bring up something that I think is definitely the biggest flaw of all, which is that, well, to be honest, I did not care about this story. I just think that it's so cheesy. The entire motivation of trying to find his lost wife is interesting sounding, but the acting is so bad I could never believe it. I mean, there were times where we're seeing a flashback of how they first met, and this is just two strangers falling in love. But the actors sound so freaking weird that I couldn't believe it. I couldn't get invested in this struggle to find his wife because it sounded like just two weirdos trying to whisper to each other in like a broom closet. I mean, there is no tension, there's no passion. There is nothing about this that actually gives off a vibe of love. I mean, it seriously seems like it is a guy in a sound booth talking to another actress in a sound booth. It is just so immersion breaking that not for a second could I actually care about him trying to find his wife because I was constantly aware of the fact that this is just a cheesy video game. I do also think that this game just has some weird random AI problems that are just so constant that you can't really avoid them. It seems like the game is, well, it seems like they tried to make it where it couldn't get too overwhelming, and incidentally ends up creating an environment where it seems like the enemies are almost nice to you. They're almost polite. Like, one of the weird things is I noticed that people won't attack you while you're meleeing somebody for the most part. I mean, I can literally walk into a camp with like 15 people and stab them all one by one because the other dudes won't hit you while you're in the middle of an attack. I mean, what the heck is this? Why would you program the enemies to be just so easy to deceive? It does really kind of unfortunately give off this sense that the game sort of feels like it was put together at the last minute. There are some flaws, there are some problems, but at the end of the day, I still think that Days Gone is at least interesting. It's one of those things that I actually kind of liked parts of it. I had a lot of fun when I'm just driving around blasting people or when I'm able to hunt a bunch of wolves in the outback, but at the end of the day, it's not exactly great. It's one of those games that I think people are going to enjoy, and they're going to pick it up, and then when they put it down, they'll probably forget about it, and sometimes that's kind of okay. Alright, so we've heard some good and some bad, but let's go to the ratings board and put a big number on it. I am giving Days Gone a 7 out of 10. For the most part, it seems like a lot of video game rental services have basically gone extinct. It's very difficult now to actually find a way to just borrow a game for a weekend, but if you live somewhere that actually has a game rental service, I would highly recommend this as a rental game. If you're able to just sit down and put like 20 hours this over the course of a weekend, you'll probably have a blast. But if you're trying to play it for like 40 hours and enjoy it like the way you did Horizon Zero Dawn or Persona or maybe some other PS4 exclusives, this is not going to be that. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Alright, I guess I gotta go do those last couple side quests so I can max out my bike. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.